that makes me think, when we moved, I was we were living in Michigan. At the time, we always considered it the North, but actually it's the North of the Midwestern states. But then moving to a Southern state, I definitely had a Northern accent, and some of the words I used were different too, like pop for
Soda.
soda. So I was ridiculed by kids for my accent for sure.
Yeah, another difficult thing for me was that the area that we moved to was affluent, and I mean, we certainly were not rich. So, you know, uh, and you could see it from the clothes we wore to the cars that my parents drove. I mean, we had these old clunkers, and everyone else in the neighborhood have these brand new cars, so it was pretty obvious. Like, we would turn a lot of heads driving past people.
Oh my God, that sounds so much like my situation. We moved from a very blue collar area. My parents, being teachers, were very blue collar as well, to a very affluent area, a lot of doctors and lawyers. And I can remember moving, we my mom drove this yellow and black Gremlin. So
Yeah,
I
they don't
would
make
get
those anymore,
no,
and there's a reason for it.
I would get dropped off at school from come in the Gremlin. I would be so embarrassed. And then, we didn't have the designer clothes that all the kids we went to school with wore. So it just was very stressful trying to keep up with the Joneses and buying these designer clothes. It was very stressful for me and my brothers, but also we put a lot of pressure on our parents to buy these, and they just couldn't afford it.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
I got to tell you one story I can remember. My mom actually, she can't sew, and she had sewn me this pair of knickers. Knickers at one point were back in style. Do you know what those are?
Yes, yeah.
And they were horrible looking. And I wore them to school, and all the kids were making fun of me on the playground.
Oh my gosh.
I was just standing in a corner by myself about to cry. And then I went home. And I was like, Mom, I want real knickers. I want you to buy them in the store for me.
Yeah, kids can be cruel. I know kids can be cruel because I'll tell you what, I had a really bad experience right before I started school the summer that I moved to Pennsylvania. I'm playing football with the kids in the neighborhood,
Uh-huh.
and of course, what happens is I get tackled and someone falls on my leg and it breaks my ankle.
No.
I couldn't believe it. So I'm sitting there trying to, act as if like it doesn't hurt that much, but I mean, it hurt a lot. And then, the kids thought I was crying wolf. They didn't really think I was hurt at all. So I have to walk away and walk home on a broken ankle. And I mean, I just felt like screaming at the top of my lungs. I was in so much pain, but I couldn't do it because I didn't want the kids to think I was like some wimp.
Oh.
So it gets worse. I have to go to school with a cast on my leg to start the school year. So I'm the new kid with the thick accent, the clothes that look out of place. You know, Nobody knows me, and I have a cast on my foot, and I can't take a shower. I can't shower the legs, so my toes are a little dirty. I mean, I wanted nothing more than to move back to New York that very moment, the first day of school.
God, I bet you stuck out like a sore thumb.
Oh, you can't imagine. It was the worst. I mean, I think for the first 2 years I lived in Pennsylvania, I just wanted to hop on a bus and get back to New York as fast as I could.
Yep, that was me wanting to move back to Michigan too.
But, but you know, at least you moved at an earlier age. It's a lot easier because, when you're younger, it's just, all the kids are getting familiar with each other. But when you move and you're a little older, the kids already know each other. They've already combined the elementary schools into the middle school for when I had moved there.
Yeah, but ironically enough, my older brother, I think, had an easier time adapting, and he was starting seventh grade. I was starting third grade. My younger brother was starting second grade, and my younger brother and I had a really rough time.
Yeah. Well, as much as I hated it when I first had moved to Pennsylvania, now in looking back, I think it was really a blessing in disguise. I mean, there were so many other opportunities that came available to us from living in Pennsylvania and going to a school district that, was had a lot more money, and the education that we got was better, and it just provided me with a much better starting point for college.
Right.
Hi.
Hi, you are listening to the Point of View Stories for Moving as a Child, Part 2. Today, I'll be telling you 3 different versions of the story that you first heard in the mini-story lesson, Moving as a Child, Part 2. Each story will either be told from a different point in time or by a different person. Let's get started by telling the story as if it is happening right now. Okay, let's go. Julia Roberts' house in Los Angeles is on fire. She calls her friend Will Smith. He thinks that she is just crying wolf. Then she starts to scream at the top of her lungs. So Will Smith calls the firemen. The fire truck gets to her house, but they cannot stop the fire. The house burns down, so Julia Roberts has to move. It's pretty obvious that she is upset, but she has to leave Los Angeles. She moves to a very small town. At first, it is rough. She is the only movie star in town, so she sticks out like a sore thumb. But the people are nice, so it is easy to become familiar with them. One day, she meets a nice man at a cafe. They fall in love and get married. When she looks back on her wedding, she smiles, and now she thinks that the fire was a blessing in disguise. Okay, so that is the story as if it is happening right now. Now let's hear the story as if it will happen sometime in the future. So we will think of the story happening 2 years from now. Okay, here we go. 2 years from now, Julia Roberts' house in Los Angeles will be on fire. She will call her friend Will Smith. He's going to think that she is just crying wolf. Then she's going to start to scream at the top of her lungs. So Will Smith will call the firemen. The fire truck will get to her house, but they will not be able to stop the fire. The house is going to burn down, so Julia Roberts will have to move. It will be pretty obvious that she is going to be upset. But she will have to leave Los Angeles. She is going to move to a very small town. At first, it'll be rough. She will be the only movie star in town, so she's going to stick out like a sore thumb. But the people will be nice, so it's going to be easy to become familiar with them. One day, she's going to meet a nice man at a cafe. They'll fall in love and get married. When she looks back on her wedding, she'll smile and she'll think that the fire was a blessing in disguise. Okay, so that's the end of the story where we talk about the events that are going to happen 2 years from now. Now we're going to hear the story from Julia Roberts' point of view. So in this version, it is going to be as if Julia Roberts is telling you the story. Okay, here we go. My house in Los Angeles was on fire. I called my friend Will Smith. He thought that I was just crying wolf. Then I started to scream at the top of my lungs. So Will Smith called the firemen. The fire truck got to my house, but they could not stop the fire. The house burned down, so I had to move. It was pretty obvious that I was upset, but I had to leave Los Angeles. I moved to a very small town. At first, it was rough. I was the only movie star in town, so I stuck out like a sore thumb. But the people were nice, so it was easy to get familiar with them. One day, I met a nice man at a cafe. We fell in love and got married. When I look back on my wedding, I smile, and now I think that the fire was a blessing in disguise. Okay, that brings us to the end of the point of view stories for Moving as a Child, Part 2. Now go back and listen to each of these stories. Listen to them many times. After you feel like you know the stories, then try to tell each story on your own. Remember to take your time and relax. Go through the stories slowly if you need to, and make sure that you learn them deeply. Okay, that's all for now. We'll see you next time.
Hi, this is Kristen Dodds.
And this is Joe Weiss.